Welcome back. Inside Broadway celebrates the appointment of Katie McAllister as a new executive director. The nonprofit organization has provided free exposure to Broadway shows to public school students in New York City for over 4 decades. In her new role, McAllister will be leading the organization's diverse and rich programs throughout the year. McAllister now joins me to discuss her new role and the overall goal of Inside Broadway. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what is Inside Broadway and its overall mission?
So Inside Broadway is a New York City-based children's theater. We provide arts and education programming in all 5 boroughs. We serve about 75,000 children a year in about 110 schools. We do an equity tour, so a professional live tour, theater tour goes into schools. We also do hands-on experiential theater programs in Shakespeare, build a musical. We do social emotional learning. We turn books into musicals. And we also have a Creating the Magic program, which is a connection to Broadway where we show students all the wonderful careers available to them on the Broadway stage.
Now, already I love the program because I wish I was like a Broadway kid. So hearing this and seeing how this is just available to students is just so exciting to hear. I also want to mention the fact that the nonprofit is celebrating over 40 years of introducing Broadway to New York City public school students, which is amazing. Can you just talk about, the importance of bridging the gap between Broadway theater and New York City public schools?
Well, it's incredibly important. I mean, Broadway is New York. People come to New York to see a Broadway show. And 41 years ago, my boss, our president and CEO, Michael Presser, he was working with the Schubert organization. And Cats was coming to Broadway. And he went to them and said, it's incredibly amazing to him that Broadway doesn't offer free tickets. So he went to the Schuberts, who then went to Really Useful, which was Andrew Lloyd Webber and company, and they donated 50 seats to Cats from the very beginning until it ended 18 and a half years ago, or 18 and a half years later. So students got to see a Broadway show every Wednesday matinee. And so that gave them connection. That began Inside Broadway's deep connection with Broadway. And we started a bunch of programs with them so that we could have students know that Broadway is there. Because if you live in the Bronx, it's a whole nother world, and you don't know Broadway is even there.
Right. I definitely love just the fact that you point that out, because this is our city, but when you live in a certain borough and you come from a certain background, it does feel like another world. And so that's why I think it's so amazing that this is happening. Now, I also want to say that the celebration continues as you take on the role of executive director. Congratulations on that. What does this achievement mean to you?
I just feel so honored, and it's amazing. I've been with Inside Broadway for 32 years, and I started actually as a teaching artist, and then became program director, and then from there became executive director. So I feel like Inside Broadway is just a part of me, and I'm really proud of our work, and it's an amazing feeling. And I hope to push the programs forward and the organization forward in the future.
Now, as you mentioned, you were a program director for over 17 years. What did you gain from that experience that will assist you on this new journey?
It really gave me a deep connection to our schools. I know all of our principals. My colleagues are always amazed because I'll say, oh, that's Mrs. So-and-so. And they'll be like, how do you know that off the top of your head? I was like, well, after many years. But having that entrenched, knowing what's going on in our schools, knowing how programs work, I feel it will make me a stronger executive director because I will understand everyone. I understand our teaching artists, I understand our schools, I understand my staff, and so putting that all together, I think that coming from the program director side, it gives me a different viewpoint than a regular executive director might have.
Now, what drew you to working with children and the overall world of theater?
So growing up, my mom loved movie musicals, and so we would sit and watch movie musicals. I did not see a Broadway show until I was 18 years old and came to New York. But I always loved musical theater, so in college I had a double major, and so that was what I did was musical theater and education. And then for children, I knew what theater did for me, and being that outside kid that wasn't cool and didn't really do sports, and so I can have that viewpoint. And so it's important for me to have students be able to have their creativity come to the forefront, have who they are come to the forefront, and really just have that experience. Because when, like reading a book, theater lets you walk in someone else's life, and it shows you a different viewpoint of the world, and it lets you then inform yourself, and it builds bridges, and it builds empathy, and so it has all these incredible things. So to me, that's why it's so important.
Now, as a Bronx resident, and we're here in the Bronx, so definitely want to shout that out. How have you seen the access to the arts pretty much just be overall kind of lacking in the borough?
So, it's hard to get in, it's hard for schools to have access. There's so much emphasis on testing, and then there's the funding component. And then there's just what do you want to do as a school, or what do you want to do as a community? And so I see things are opening up now. The Department of Education is putting a little bit more money into arts funding. Our city council puts a lot of money into arts funding, which really is a game changer. And also for programs to have that relationship and to bring arts into a school, it changes the whole community of the school. And also having that, our connection to Broadway, with our Creating the Magic program, our students actually get to go to Broadway, and they get to see what's happening there. So things are opening up, they're changing. It's slow, I'd like it to go fast, but I do believe, and I'm very hopeful for the future that it will be.
Now, you mentioned Creating the Magic, which is a beautiful title. I just want to add, can you talk a little bit more about that program and how it just opens up a new world to so many of these students?
So Creating the Magic started years ago. We actually started with taking Broadway shows into schools with a few of the performers, and they would perform for the students, and they could have a talk back. And then from there it grew, and it was like, well, what if we could show them all of the other magic? So I like to call it a backstage pass to a Broadway show. So they come in, they see performances by the actors, but then we show them something that even if you've seen 50 Broadway shows, you've never seen. We show you how everything works. So techs come out and technicians come out, and they give demonstrations of the lighting and the sound, puppetry. We've partnered with Wicked and Moulin Rouge, Dear Evan Hansen. We have a Creating the Magic coming up in next week, and it's really exciting because students come in wanting to be an actor, and they leave wanting to be like a hairdresser, or they want to be a costume designer or a music director, because they see that it's a possibility.
Now, what are the long-term positive effects of participating, of children participating in these art-based programs?
Well, it builds self-esteem, it builds community, it builds language acquisition, and it just makes you, as I was saying before, that it lets you walk in someone else's shoes. So that long-term effect of seeing somebody else's life informs your life, and it helps you to better understand, and in our world, we don't really build community anymore. We're online all the time. We're texting and things like that. So I think that theater really helps us to not only understand the world around us, but have a better understanding of ourselves. And so that's the long-term impact.
Now, I definitely want to talk about representation since we are talking about New York City public schools. How does this experience ensure that children in these areas feel represented in the theater and the arts? And I will say, just from my own experience, I do feel like theater is a very inclusive and a space that does value representation. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and how that works and how you ensure that with the children that you work with.
Well, theater is inclusive because people say, oh, they're a theater nerd, so it's like everyone is accepted. And at Inside Broadway, I'm really proud of our programs. I'm really proud of our teaching artists. They are diverse backgrounds. They are diverse people. They look different. They have different thoughts. And that's important because for a child to be able to connect to someone, I always say to my staff, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And so connecting to an artist and having the same thoughts or the same ideas with someone, but it's important for them to have that, and it brings out in them like just an amazing thing. And so, you know, I think that it's important to be inclusive. Our programs are also including our D75, our students with disabilities. We also do senior citizens that come into our programs, and so everybody is welcome. We do 3K to 90. So
And I love that because I think that so many people realize that they love the theater and the arts sometimes later in life, and I love that there's a space for everyone. You know, the organization has been doing so many amazing things for such a long time. What do you hope to see for the future of Inside Broadway?
I really want us to be able to expand even more. I want our programs to expand even more. I want to be able to provide services for everyone. I would love to see a funding stream opened up, either from our federal government, our state, and our city, that really provides access for everyone, that makes sure that there's funds out there so that everyone can experience the arts and can have an enriching experience and have that inform their life. And so for me, just it's like, you know, more. Let's just have more for everyone.
Now, can you quickly let us know how can organizations or schools collaborate with Inside Broadway?
Sure. They can reach us at www.insidebroadway.org. They can also go to our Facebook page. We're also on Instagram, and so they can reach out at any time. And we are also a DOE vendor, so if they're a school, they can contact us.
Well, I want to say congratulations once again on the new title, and thank you so much for joining us and talking a little bit more about Inside Broadway.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you would like to learn more about Inside Broadway, please go to their website at www.insidebroadway.org. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Open after this.